Science continually marches forward, led by inventors of great intelligence and vision, improving our lives and protecting our future. Tin cans and a string just wouldn't cut it any longer. From the first recorded sound to your inbox, the world's greatest inventors have changed the way we communicate. Thomas Edison may have been the hardest working man in the 19th and 20th centuries. He often spent 20 hours a day working tirelessly, trying to find the solution to his latest projects. His secret was not just genius, but tenacity. In 1878, Thomas Edison and his staff in Menlo Park, New Jersey, set out to invent the first incandescent light bulb. Edison showed his great determination when he experimented with thousands of filament materials before discovering carbonized thread. The hard work paid off, and Edison's light bulb was a huge success, illuminating cities all over the world. But the light bulb was far from this wizard's only invention. His record still stands of holding 1,093 patents. One of his other inventions may also have been one of his favorites, the phonograph. This device was a great achievement in communications, as it allowed for us for the first time to record sound and play it back. Here, Edison recounts the first words that he ever muttered into his machine, making a popular nursery rhyme the first recorded words in history.
Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
The phonograph recorded indentations on paper, later foil, from the vibrations of one's voice. The machine could then read those indentations and play the vibrations back. It was a truly amazing feat, giving us a means of documentation and also a new form of entertainment. Edison's long resume also includes what many consider to be the first movie camera, the kinetoscope. With this new invention, Edison also became one of the first movie producers, making films for the public to view. Thomas Edison gave to the world countless inventions of inestimable worth. The light bulb, phonograph, and movie camera are just three of his many contributions to a new technological age. Upon his death in 1931, lights all across America dimmed in his honor. With the touch of a button, you can converse with almost anybody in almost any part of the world. Telephones are a staple of our life, keeping us all connected, and it all started with the determination of a young Scotsman named Alexander Graham Bell. Bell was born in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1847 and seemed to be destined to make a career in sound and speech. His father had developed the first international phonetic alphabet. His skill in sound was also observed in his inspired piano playing. As a youngster, he realized that chords could be transmitted through the air. After his studies, Bell moved to Ontario, Canada, and then down to the United States, where he settled in Boston, Massachusetts. He first worked to develop a more advanced telegraph using Morse code, but quickly realized that his logic could be applied to human speech. Bell set to work, and in 1875, Bell developed the first version of what came to be known as the telephone. The first words to be transmitted over this speaking device were his own, talking to his assistant Thomas Watson, who was in the next room. "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." Not the most exciting of words, but surely a most brilliant achievement. On March 7, 1876, Bell received his patent for the telephone. A year later, the world's first phone call over telegraph wires took place in Ontario, Canada. The Bell Telephone Company was established in 1877 to provide phone service to the masses by creating a workable exchange, a switchboard historically operated by friendly and cordial women. In the 1880s, metallic circuits allowed for the creation of long-distance service. The telephone steadily improved its service and range, but it took some of its greatest leaps during World War II. The U.S. and Allied powers were fighting an incredibly difficult war and realized how important communication was to victory. U.S. defense money funded many experiments and innovations, and it brought Bell Telephone to the forefront of the telecommunications in the post-war era. Bell Laboratories employees William Shockley, Walter Brattain, and John Bardeen invented the transistor in 1947, which greatly improved all electronics, including the telephone. 1962 saw another leap in telephone communications as the first international communications satellite, Telstar, was launched into space. One of the latest developments, and perhaps most far-reaching, is the cell phone, a unit with its own central radio transmitter and receiver. From Bell's first words to his assistant across the hall, to spanning the globe, the telephone has brought us to a time where anyone can be reached. On the street, in the car, or just about anywhere, we all have the pleasure of passing the time listening to the radio. While we have many to thank for this technology, the most important is Guglielmo Marconi. At the age of 20 in 1894, in his hometown of Bologna, Italy, Marconi dreamed of sending messages through the air. After discovering the work of Heinrich Hertz, who proved in 1886 that electromagnetic energy traveled through air, Marconi realized that radio waves, messages sent without wires, were the future of communication. At his family's country estate, Marconi developed a technology where he could transmit radio waves over short distances. When the Italian Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs took no interest in Marconi's discoveries, he set sail for England. Once there, he filed a patent for his ability to send wireless signals. But still, many had doubts about his invention. Marconi decided to take a giant risk, putting his reputation at stake, in an attempt to send a wireless message across the Great Atlantic. He spent over a year building aerials in Cornwall, England and Cape Cod, Massachusetts, only to see both ruined in storms only weeks before the experiment was to take place. He did not give up, but scrambled to build a makeshift aerial in Cornwall and use an aerial attached to a kite in St. John's, Newfoundland. Marconi succeeded in transmitting a Morse code S a distance of 2,100 miles. With such little time to prepare, this transmission was a huge success. But even then, demand and belief in Marconi's invention was weak. Two events finally put Marconi and his wireless telegraph over the top. In 1912, the ill-fated ship the Titanic struck an iceberg and began to flood and sink. Tragically, about 1,500 lives were lost, but miraculously, over 700 people were saved when the Titanic, equipped with Marconi's machine, sent a distress signal to the Carpathia, who came to their rescue. Very shortly thereafter, every ship would be equipped with radio. The other boost for radio's popularity was its eventual entrance into our living rooms as the main form of entertainment.
Well, who's on first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name.
Yes.
I mean the guy playing first.
Who?
The fellow playing first.
Who?
The first baseman.
Who?
The guy playing first.
Who is on first?
Well, what are you asking me for?
Golden Age celebrities like Jack Benny, Milton Berle, and Bob Hope all delivered their vaudeville routine nationwide with the radio, and we were all there to hear them. Guglielmo Marconi gave us the radio, which allowed us to share information, ideas, news, and entertainment from across the country, and all with just the turn of a dial. Explore the world with the click of a mouse. Inventor Tim Berners-Lee gave us the World Wide Web. Tim Berners-Lee was the child of two computer scientists and has been crazy about computers all his life. In 1989, he was working at CERN, the world's largest particle physics center, as a software engineer. He was desperate to find a way to organize his many notes. His solution was a piece of software that could keep track of random associations, and he called it Esquire. His software was so effective, he decided to bring it to the whole world. The World Wide Web was born. The Internet had already existed, mostly used by the government and academic organizations. But Berners-Lee's invention allowed for the universal exchange of information from any digital port. It debuted in 1991, and by 1996, Internet users grew from 600,000 to 40 million. One could research their favorite topic, book vacations, even shop online, all the while sitting in their favorite chair. The amount of information on the web is immeasurable, and it's estimated that there are now more than 500 million Internet users. The web has made millions for many companies and individuals, but since the web's inception, Tim Berners-Lee has not cashed in. Instead, and quite surprisingly, he has been tirelessly fighting to keep the web free. At the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Berners-Lee heads the W3 Consortium, an organization devoted to ensure the web's interoperability, its nature of being shared at no expense. He asserts that if one had to pay for information from the web from the beginning, the web never would have attracted the enormous amount of input that it had. Instead, Tim Berners-Lee is content to labor quietly in the background, eluding fame and fortune. The World Wide Web started as an organizational tool for a highly talented but busy man, and ended up bringing the world to our fingertips. Lasers, plastics, computers, atomic energy, and transistors. They have all shaped the world we know today. Only the most creative of people could conceive of such revolutionary inventions. Whether you're buying your groceries, correcting your vision, or sending a package, you are benefiting from lasers. The stroke of genius from physicist Gordon Gould. Born in New York in 1920, Gordon Gould always aspired to be like his hero, legendary inventor Thomas Edison. But Gould's road to fame and fortune would prove to be a bit more rocky than his idols. After Gould finished graduate work at Yale University, World War II was breaking out and he was drafted. Instead of taking up arms, his impressive graduate work in physics made him eligible to work on the top-secret Manhattan Project, dedicated to the research and development of nuclear arms. He was recruited to research for the likes of Robert Oppenheimer, Enrico Fermi, and Leo Szilard. Shortly afterwards, he continued studying at Columbia University, when one night in bed, he had the sudden and brilliant idea of how to harness the power of a beam of light. Up until that moment, light coming out of a light bulb would just scatter, but if a light beam can be generated and focused, it can be quite a powerful tool. He had conceived of the first laser, light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. With such a brilliant invention, one might think that Gould could then move to Easy Street, but competitors Charles Townes and Arthur Shallow beat Gould to the patent office, claiming they had invented the laser. A very expensive and draining 30-year court battle ensued. Finally, in 1997, Gould was vindicated in court and found to be the laser's true inventor. Gould can now sit back and marvel at how his invention is used widely throughout the entire world. The laser has an uncanny ability to be useful, even necessary, in so many facets of life today. Medicine has taken a strong liking to lasers, using them in surgery. The most popular form of the laser in the medical community is the new LASIK eye-correcting procedure that reduces a person's dependency on eyeglasses or contact lenses. Lasers are also a key tool in manufacturing microchips, the backbone of our computer age. Lasers scan our products on the grocery line, they're in our phone lines, and they even give us one heck of a show. Gordon Gould had to fight hard for legal and public recognition of his invention. But the laser would never have to suffer obscurity, for it is everywhere you look. Leo Hendrik Baekeland invented one of the most important products of the 20th century, found in almost every aspect of our life. We have just one word for you: plastics. Baekeland was born in Belgium in 1863. He was known for having an insatiable appetite for knowledge and experimentation. His hero was Benjamin Franklin. Educated in Germany, Leo Baekeland emigrated to the United States in 1889 and set up his own laboratory in New York. He invented the first photographic paper that was sensitive to light and called it Velox. In 1899, George Eastman, founder of the Eastman Kodak Company, bought the rights to the paper for a whopping $1 million. This nest egg was more than enough money for Baekeland to buy a house in Yonkers, New York, and he began working on an even greater achievement, one that would change the world as we know it. After an exhausting 3 years of experimentation, Baekeland eventually created a hard yet moldable substance. He called it Bakelite, but now we know it as plastic. Baekeland founded the General Bakelite Corporation and turned quite a healthy profit from his strange malleable material. Bakelite was a miracle substance and found its way into such items as radios, knives, and even billiard balls. In 1924, Baekeland listed 43 industries in which plastic would be useful. In 1940, Time magazine duly noted that it would be hard to find 43 industries in which it was not. Curiously, one of the first uses for Bakelite was to make all kinds of jewelry and decorations. The fad died out, but came back with a vengeance. Bakelite jewelry is now one of the most desired items in the collectibles markets, with prices that sometimes rival even diamonds. Plastics are in the toys we give our children, in the hospitals saving our lives, and just about everywhere. Leo Baekeland started off inventing the photographic paper Velox, but he will always be remembered as the great chemist who introduced the world to plastics. Where would we be today without the computer? It makes possible the most difficult of tasks, from spell checking to space exploration. And it all started from an essay written by a young, brilliant man, Alan Turing. Born and raised in Britain, Turing's overall scholastic achievements were mediocre, but he excelled in science and math, most notably calculus. On scholarship, he got accepted into King's College in England, and in 1934 graduated with a master's degree in mathematics. In 1936, Turing produced his greatest masterpiece, a paper called On Computable Numbers, in which he described in detail the possibility of a machine that could solve any mathematical problem. He didn't know it then, but he was describing what would come to be known as the first computer. As World War II broke out, Turing's work became incredibly vital to Britain and the Allied powers. The Germans were invading all over Europe in an organized but unpredictable manner. British intelligence set out to learn of the Germans' plans, but could not decipher the codes that they intercepted. The Nazis had a code and ciphering machine called the Enigma that the Germans thought was impossible to crack. But Alan Turing was recruited to British top-secret offices in Bletchley Park to prove them wrong. Turing helped construct several computers that could crack German codes and monitor German movement, most importantly, the German U-boats. Alan Turing invented the computer and was an invaluable participant in the Allied victory in World War II, but his accomplishments went relatively unnoticed by the military and the public. Turing never fit in socially. He stood out from the rest as different and had few friends among his colleagues. Tragically, in 1954, Alan Turing took his own life for reasons not completely understood. Perhaps the saddest chapter in Turing's story is that he did not live to see the great impact computers would have on our world today. Hardly any office, home, school, or any other organization does not use in some capacity a computer. Almost by the minute, computers are becoming more efficient and therefore more indispensable to us. They're in the hospitals saving our lives, and in our homes as we surf the web. Alan Turing thought he was creating a machine that could crunch numbers, but he ended up changing society and providing us with the main tool with which to navigate the modern world. The atomic bomb has caught the attention, imagination, and fear of the entire world. It's one of the most horrific forms of mass destruction, but also the greatest source of energy. The man who first came up with the concept of chain reaction, the science behind splitting an atom, also spent the rest of his life fighting the use of the bomb. His name is Leo Szilard. Born in 1898 in Budapest, Austro-Hungary, Szilard took an interest in physics as early as 13 years old. In 1934, Lord Rutherford gave a speech stating that the conversion of mass into energy was impossible. The stubborn Leo Szilard set out to prove him wrong. Soon thereafter, Szilard came up with a theory of chain reaction. His theory was radical and not understood by most, but he and a few other scientists knew immediately that the possibility of an atomic bomb could become a reality. Szilard had a terrible fear of what the Nazis could do with such a weapon, and he was aware of their intentions to dominate the world. With an atomic weapon, Hitler may very well have a chance. In 1939, Szilard made the trip to the United States and met with his former physics collaborator, none other than Albert Einstein, to help compose and deliver a letter to President Roosevelt. They encouraged the United States to finance research and development in this project so that they may create the first atom bomb before the Germans and end the war quickly. The letter was successful. The government spent almost $2 billion, now equal to over $20 billion, in an undertaking to be known as the Manhattan Project, which included Szilard under the leadership of military General Leslie Groves and theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer. During the course of the project, General Groves, a military man who lived by discipline and rules, often did not see eye to eye with Leo Szilard, the stubborn but brilliant man whose genius was inspired by breaking protocol and disrupting order. Groves eventually forced Szilard off the Manhattan Project over disputes concerning the rights to Szillard's patent of chain reaction, and Szilard ended up signing away his rights and never got another penny from a patent that would have paid millions in royalties. The Manhattan Project succeeded, however, and built 2 atomic bombs, the greatest weapons of mass destruction the world had ever seen. Japan was completely incapacitated when on August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. And 3 days later, when another was dropped on Nagasaki. Very soon after, Japan surrendered. Ironically, the man who first invented the concept of chain reaction spent the rest of his life opposing the creation of nuclear bombs. The United States and the Soviet Union were engaged in a nuclear arms race, both spending billions of dollars in creating and testing nuclear weapons. But Szilard was there every step of the way, fighting against construction of weapons with such cataclysmic consequences. Szilard's theory of chain reaction led to the atom bomb, but also developed into the idea of nuclear power plants, providing energy to our very thirsty electrical world. The chain reaction was a stroke of genius. Its uses vary from constructive to destructive, but Leo Szilard's contribution to science has helped shape the world we know today. One of the greatest inventions of the modern world created some of the biggest changes, and it's smaller than your thumbnail. In 1947, William Shockley invented the transistor. Although the transistor may not sound as exciting as the light bulb or the plane, without it, the world would be without everyday devices, from personal computers to cell phones. Almost every electrical device today owes its existence to William Shockley and his associates John Bardeen and Walter Bertin for inventing the transistor. William Shockley was a very diligent, brilliant man who is as well known for his contributions to science as his distaste for mediocrity. Raised in Palo Alto, California, William Shockley always showed a great interest in the world of science, especially physics. He received his bachelor's degree from Caltech and his PhD from MIT, where he first became fascinated with the properties of solid-state physics. Upon his graduation at MIT in 1936, Shockley accepted a job at Bell Telephone Laboratories, where he eventually would help create a new technological age. Up until this point, the vacuum tube was used in electronic devices to boost electronic signals, providing sufficient power for them to function. While effective, the vacuum tube was very large and expensive, and it generated so much heat that it often self-destructed. Shockley theorized that the use of a semiconductor, a solid crystalline substance, could not only outperform the vacuum tube, but it would be at a fraction of the size and price. By 1947, with new understanding of semiconductors, Shockley and his staff of John Bardeen and Walter Brattain labored to create the very first transistor. It made such an impact on the world that in 1956, Shockley, Brattain, and Bardeen were all awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics. The transistor blazed the trail for the microchip, making it possible for radios that once took up half the living room to fit in your pocket, and computers that were bigger than most apartments to sit in the palm of your hand. Never content to settle and always pushing boundaries, William Shockley left Bell Labs in the mid-1950s and started his own business called Shockley Semiconductor in his home of Palo Alto, California. His use of silicon as a semiconductor was so impressive that it sparked an entire industry there, providing the city with its new alias, Silicon Valley. The transistor made dreams come true that we didn't even know we had. From radios to rockets, and from laptops to lasers, the transistor is at the heart of all electronics and the brainchild of 3 determined, hard-working scientists.